Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Beneath the Surface, where we focus on political, social and Islamic issues. Today we'll be discussing Wiladat Imam Ali alayhi salam, and joining us on the show is SayidZafarAbbas, an Islamic lecturer. Thank you very much for joining us again. Please tell us, who is the first Imam?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu salam is a personality for whom it's very difficult to speak about, because he's a personality for whom every time you want to speak about him, you have to think, what shall I leave out? What should I not discuss in this time that I have? Because there's so much to say, and there's so much to begin with, right from the beginning of his life when he comes into this dunya, all the way up to the moment that he passes away. Everything in his life is eventful. You know, we say for people that they have eventful lives, but Amir al-Mu'mineen salatu salam's whole life is so eventful. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salam born on Friday the 13th of Rajab in the 30th year after Am al-Fil, so he's 30 years younger than the Holy Prophet of Islam, at Makkah, inside the precincts of Masjid al-Haram, and is martyred on Monday the 21st of Ramadan at Kufa, and buried at Najaf. And really to attempt to even begin to speak about his life is a daunting prospect. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salam is the one who is the only person to have been born in the precincts of the Haram. He's the only person for whom the Holy Prophet of Islam considered his brother. He's the person who grew up in the Holy Prophet of Islam's house. He supported the Holy Prophet of Islam at a time when nobody was willing to support him, and he defended the religion of Islam in all the battles that the Holy Prophet of Islam fought. He defended the Holy Prophet of Islam by sleeping on the bed. He defended the Holy Prophet of Islam in countless other situations. He is the person who had the honor of being the final person with the Holy Prophet of Islam before lowering him into the grave. And then after that, there is a series of events that happens to him, of course. The martyrdom of Hazrat Zahra Salamullah alayha, and then the moment when he's forced to give allegiance, and then his retiring from public life, all the way up to the time where he's forced to become the Khalifa, and then eventually his martyrdom at Kufa. So really, everything in his life is something that, you know, even if we were to spend a few minutes talking about each one of them, we would still need many hours to discuss Amir al-Mu'mineen's life. But in summary, I would like to share two statements from the Imam Salamullah alayhi himself, which will give us an insight into who he is. You know, in a previous discussion where we spoke about Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, we mentioned the importance that he placed on knowledge. And of course, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salam also has this similar emphasis on knowledge. But interestingly, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen salam gives us a different perspective, a different angle on this. For he says, the Holy Prophet of Islam taught me 1,000 chapters, 1,000 bab of ilm, of knowledge. And from each gate, from each chapter, I opened a further 1,000 chapters. 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000. Any expert in any field, if I was to ask that person to tell me 1,000,000 words regarding their field, they would not be able to do so. If I was to ask a scientist to tell me 1,000,000 words regarding science, or a doctor to tell me 1,000,000 words regarding medicine, or a faqih to tell me 1,000,000 words about fiqh, or a linguist to tell me 1,000,000 words about linguistics. It would be impossible for a person to even remember 1,000,000 words, let alone 1,000,000 chapters of knowledge. And despite that, so it is not impressive that he knows 1 million chapters of knowledge, but what is impressive is that despite that he's saying that I, Holy Prophet of Islam, what he taught me, I multiplied that. Despite that, he's saying, Ana abdu min abidi Muhammad, I am just one of the servants amongst the many servants of the Holy Prophet of Islam. So he's saying that even though I've achieved so much, even though I've done all of this, I'm still just one of the servants. I'm still a person who sees myself as humble in front of the Holy Prophet of Islam. And so that is what is impressive about Amir al-Mu'minin, that he does everything. He demonstrates that he's capable of everything. And then he says that, but look at how humble I am. That look at me, who when I'm in the battlefield, then I will take on the bravest warriors of Arabia, the most fearsome warriors of Arabia. But when I'm in the masjid, you'll see me weeping, saying, Mawlai ya Mawlai, Ana abdun wa anta al-Mawla, wa hal yarhamu al-Mawla illa al-abd. You are the master and I'm the servant, and who will have mercy upon the servant except for the master? And it's almost unbelievable to believe that, to know that this is the same person. This is the same man who in the battlefield was taking on the most ferocious people, and in the masjid he's like this. And in that regard, if you look at the life of Amir al-Mu'minin, you see that if you have a person who's very brave, who's a warrior, it's very unlikely that that person will be a master of knowledge as well. It's very rare for a person. And it's then equally as rare for a person who's a master of knowledge to be the master of spirituality as well. And even rarer than that is a person who happens to be a master of spirituality to then be the most generous person of his time as well. For that person who's brave on the battlefield, for that person who's humble in the masjid, for that person who is generous to the poor, for that person who is master of eloquence when he's on the minbar. For all of these antithetical qualities to all come into one person is almost impossible. Yet Amir al-Mu'minin demonstrates all of these qualities within one person. He's showing me that all of these qualities that you seem, or for an ordinary person, seem to be antithetical. They can't come together in one person. They will come together in me. It depends on the perspective from which you look at. If you look at Amir al-Mu'minin as the philanthropist, you see a different person. If you look at him as the orator, you see him as a totally different person. If you look at him as the servant, as the worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sees something else. And if you look at him as a warrior, he seems totally different. Yet all of these are in one person. And all of this demonstrates to us that Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam, when we're talking about him, we're talking about somebody who's a multi-dimensional person. We're not speaking about him as a person. We're speaking about him from all these dimensions. And for this reason, he's incomparable with anybody else. You know, because he demonstrates all these things, we can't compare him with anyone else, because nobody else has all of these things within them, and it's not possible for a person to have these things. So all of these things demonstrate to us that Amir al-Mu'minin really, he's the Amir of the believers, he's the master of the believers, he's the commander of the believers, because he has all these characteristics that any person. So if I'm a philanthropist, I can relate to him. If I'm an orator, I can relate to him. If I'm a warrior, I can relate to him. If I'm just a servant of God, I can also relate to him. You know, for whatever person I am, there is something in him, within him, which I can relate to.
Well, it is beautiful, the fact that all of us, regardless of who we are and what our characteristics actually represent, we can all actually relate to him. But you mentioned the story of Quraysh, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to leave, and then Imam Ali alayhi salam went and slept in his bed. Can you tell us the importance of that action, and how we, as normal people, can actually relate to that in one way or another?
So this is a very important act from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, because of course he knows for sure that there are people there who are intent on killing the Holy Prophet of Islam. And so if he sleeps there, he's putting his life in danger. Yet he doesn't question this from the Holy Prophet of Islam. The only question that he asks the Holy Prophet about is, Ya Rasulullah, if I sleep on the bed, will it save your life? That's all he is concerned about. And when Rasulullah says, yes, Ya Ali, if you sleep on the bed, my life will be saved, he says, I'll sleep on the bed. He doesn't ask any other questions. So the first thing he's showing us is that this is my priority. My priority in life is to do whatever I need to do in order to save the Holy Prophet of Islam. So I have to know my priority. That's the first thing that he's teaching us. The second thing that he's saying is that once I know my priority, then in order to achieve that, it can come at any cost whatsoever. That has to be achieved, whatever it risks and that might entail. But thirdly, he's showing us that this isn't easy. This is not an easy task, because it's mentioned in the narratives that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the arsh says to Jibreel and Mikael, he says that if I was to tell one of you to put the other in a life-threatening situation in order to save the life of the other, would you do it? And they both say no, even though on the arsh Jibreel and Mikael have been made brothers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to them, he says, I want you to go down to the earth and see how Amir al-Mu'mineen has slept on the bed in order to save the life of my beloved. And they go down there. When they come back, they say, Ya Allah, we submit. There's nobody like him, because we wouldn't do that for each other. But he's done it for the Holy Prophet of Islam. At that moment in time, then Jibreel comes with a verse in praise of this particular event to the Holy Prophet of Islam. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسُهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ رَءُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. And amongst the men there is one who sells his soul ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ, in return for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is affectionate towards his servants. And really that gives us the insight into the gravity, or really the reality of what this is all about. Saying that because he slept on the bed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given the pleasure of Allah. So what's so great about sleeping on the bed that it's so valuable that in exchange for that, person's got the pleasure of Allah? Then the answer is, it's not about sleeping on the bed. It's about the conviction that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam has for the Holy Prophet of Islam. That because he is the Holy Prophet of Islam, because he is Rasulullah, and because it's my obligation to save his life, therefore I am sleeping on the bed regardless of what the consequences might be. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you did that in order to save my beloved. You did not do that to save your brother or your cousin or your relative. No, you did it because he is my beloved. I love him. And therefore, I'm giving you the highest possible reward that can be for this particular action. And that is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, the lesson in that is that to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever it might take to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is always worth it. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying that I'm willing to put my life at stake in order to get the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order to get the pleasure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised for those who will go through this moment of sacrifice. So that sometimes is will be an indication for us that we go through moments in our lives where we think, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to go through this, because if I do this it will be difficult for me. Even if the end will be positive, why should I go through this difficulty in order to achieve this? No, Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying that your purpose has to be fixed, and if your purpose is fixed, then in order to achieve that purpose, you will go through everything.
You wouldn't mind the hardship.
You wouldn't mind what you need to go through, because your your view and what you're looking at is not at the hardship that is in between, but you're looking at the consequences that are to come. So because Amirul Mu'mineen knows that for sure if I sleep on the bed, Rasulullah will be able to go towards Medina and he will be able to save his life, therefore I will go through the consequences. And Rasulullah has a responsibility to leave somebody there on the night of Hijrah. And this is a very important aspect with regards to our theological beliefs, because if Rasulullah leaves Mecca and he does not put anybody in his place, then the Prophet will be accused of escaping, of running away. But he's left somebody there to ensure that all those trusts that he has had will be returned to somebody. And it has to be somebody who's exactly like the Holy Prophet of Islam, because otherwise anybody can come and say, I left this much money with the Holy Prophet, or I left this with the Holy Prophet of Islam, and how would that person be able to confirm? So this is an important theological proof to show that there's, in terms of authority and in terms of knowledge, in terms of spirituality, in terms of everything that belongs to the Holy Prophet of Islam is with Amirul Mu'mineen, except for prophethood, except for Nubuwwat and Risala. Everything else that's in the Holy Prophet of Islam is with Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam. And this particular juncture will give us an insight that when people come afterwards and they claim, and some people obviously, they realize that this is a different person, and they think that maybe they can claim something that is not theirs. And when they do, then Amirul Mu'mineen says that that is not the case. This is not an amana that you have, that you had left with the Holy Prophet of Islam. So therefore, at that moment in time, they realize that this is not an ordinary person. This person who has been replaced on the bed by the Holy Prophet of Islam is someone who really is like the Holy Prophet. And they're able to confirm and they're able to know what exactly was the amana and what was not.
Well, there are many narrations by the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where he mentioned Imam Ali to be like the next Imam and the next messenger in a way. Of course, not messenger in the sense of prophethood, but the one that's going to be helping the Muslims and the Ummah with many things. And like, as we have many narrations, some schools of thought state that as it isn't in the Quran, as it's not mentioned in the Quran, that means he isn't an Imam and he's just a Khalifa, or some even don't believe him to be a Khalifa. As Shia, we do believe there are verses in the Quran, but even within our own school of thought, we don't stress on them as much. We mainly tend to focus on hadiths and events like this and many others where Imam Ali alayhi salam stood up for Islam and for the Holy Prophet. So can you mention to us a few verses from the Quran?
Certainly there's many verses in the Holy Quran which refer to Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu salam with regards to his authority and with regards to the succession. Al-Allama al-Hilli rahmatullah alayh mentions in a book called Al-Fayn, which lists 1,000 proofs about the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen Islam and 1,000 proofs against the wilayah of other people. And in the foreword of the book, he mentions something very interesting. So he says, I've compiled this book and there's 1,000 proofs that Amirul Mu'mineen was the successor of the Holy Prophet, and 1,000 proofs that other people were not. However, I believe that there is a verse in the Holy Quran that by itself is sufficient to prove the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen Islam, and there's no need for any other proofs. So which verse is this? He mentions that this is verse number 43 of Surah Al-Ra'd, which is the 13th surah of the Holy Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a conversation that the Holy Prophet has had with the disbelievers. It says, وَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَسْتَ مُرْسَلًا. The disbelievers, those who disbelieve, say that you are not a messenger, that you are not a prophet, or you are not a Rasul. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقُلْ, tell them, كفى بالله شهيدا بيني وبينكم وهو عنده علم الكتاب. He says, tell them that if they don't believe you are a messenger, it's not a problem. Them believing in you as a messenger or not is not important. Tell them, say to them that sufficient as a witness over my risala, over my messengership, over the fact that I'm a messenger, is Allah and the one who has the complete knowledge of the book. Imam al-Hilli mentions that this verse, of course, it's addressing وَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieve. It's referring to disbelievers. And all the verses which have references towards disbelievers are verses which are revealed in Mecca. Because the verses which are revealed in Medina are to do with ahkam. And all the verses which are revealed with regards to believing in Allah and believing in the Prophet and beliefs as a whole are all revealed in Mecca. So this verse is revealed in Mecca and over half of the Holy Quran. In fact, the vast majority of it will be revealed in Medina. So there is a person in Mecca at the time of the Prophet who has the complete knowledge of the Quran before it has been revealed. And so Imam al-Hilli says that this person is none other than Amir al-Mu'minin, and he's the other person who is the witness over the Risala of the Holy Prophet of Islam, who is referred to in this day. Amir al-Mu'minin himself in a narration states that in answer to a question, somebody had asked him, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, what is the verse that about you in the Holy Quran which you yourself desire the most, that you like the most? And so Amir al-Mu'minin says that all the verses in the Quran that have been revealed about me, I like them, but this particular verse, قُلْ كَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكُمْ, is the verse that I like the most. They said, why? He said, because in this verse I was kept parallel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was a witness, is a witness, and I am a witness. In other words, I was made a witness alongside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the greatest honor for me. And for that I desire this verse, and I prefer this verse over all the other verses. This is one verse, of course, of the Holy Quran. Another verse, which is a very famous verse, which we refer to as the ayah of wilayah, which is verse 55, Surah Al-Ma'idah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya alladhina إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. And this is also an important verse regarding Amir al-Mu'minin because the beginning of the verse, in fact, begins by talking about, or it begins with a grammatical exposition, which is Adatul Hasr. In Arabic language, innama denotes the fact that whatever is coming after this means that this is the only thing that's being referred to. And so the real translation, or the correct translation, would be that only Allah is your master and His messenger and those who establish the prayer and give the zakat while they're in the state of ruku. And of course, this verse was revealed at a particularly important time when a person came into the masjid and he complained to Allah that I came to the masjid and I've not got anything, and Imam Ali gave his ring, and then this verse was revealed. And when he gave his ring, he was in the state of ruku, and therefore this verse was revealed talking about giving zakat in the state of ruku. So this verse, of course, and there's a ijma of all the mufassirin that this verse was revealed after this particular incident, and it's referring to Imam Amir al-Mu'minin. And it's very special because, of course, establishing the prayer and giving the zakat is obligation upon all people. But doing so in the state of ruku is something that is very unique in this regard. Nobody else before or after has done such a thing for which the Quran has acknowledged. So it would not make any sense to say that, as some translators, for example, mentioned that what it refers to here is that it means that those who establish the prayer and give zakat and they do ruku, and that this is the waw of atf, so it's and. But that would not make any sense because there's no salat without ruku, and therefore to mention ruku separately doesn't make any sense. Why would Allah say that establish the prayer and give zakat and then do ruku as well when there is no salat?
Ruku is part of the prayer.
Not only is it a part, but it's a rukn of the prayer, that if you remove the rukn from the prayer, then even if it was done accidentally or it was done in forgetfulness, the prayer would be batil, it would be void. So to mention that ruku separately would not make any sense. In fact, the scholars of Nahu mentioned that this is not the waw of ataf, this is the waw of hal. And it's saying that it's referring to the zakat. When the verse says, وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ, in that it's saying that this waw is of the hal, that this zakat is given while in ruku. And that's the only thing that makes sense. Otherwise, to say, to establish prayer and give zakat and to do ruku doesn't make any sense at all. In any case, so this verse also refers to Amir al-Mu'minin. One count mentions over 300 verses of such like, referring to various actions, praising various actions of Amir al-Mu'minin from the beginning of his life to the end of his life. But really, yes, it is important for us as followers of Ahlul Bayt to have a relationship with the Quran. Amir al-Mu'minin had this relationship with the Quran. He did an oath after the Holy Prophet that he would not leave the house, and he did not leave the house until he had compiled the Quran in its entirety. And similarly, all the other Imams, they would always give an answer from the Holy Quran. So it's important that we also, followers of the A'immah have that relationship with the Quran. Because the Quran is with Ahlul Bayt and we cannot go towards Ahlul Bayt, cannot go towards them if we do not have a relationship with the Quran. And similarly, a person who has Quran has to have a relationship with Ahlul Bayt because they cannot understand the Quran without Ahlul Bayt. So the relationship has to be together. And this is very important. It's not necessary, for example, there are narratives which state the minimum amount of verses that a person should recite in a day, but these are from the mustahabbat. What is important is even if a person recites one verse a day, but they reflect on it, they contemplate on that verse, and they say that for today I'm going to use today to understand this verse, I'm going to read about this verse, I'm going to find out why was it revealed, I'm going to find out who was it revealed about, find out what is its application for me today. And that would be a real relationship with the Holy Quran, that I'm reading a verse and I'm contemplating over it, I'm doing tafakkur over it, and then I'm finding out about it. And then when I'm finding out about it, then that way I can find the opportunity to act upon this verse and really incorporate it into my life. So that is very important, because Amir al-Mu'minin is the living, walking, talking Quran. All the A'immah are there to explain the Holy Quran. They all have a relationship with the Quran. So if I claim to be with them, follow them, then I also have to have that relationship as well.
That is true, but unfortunately, because we don't all understand the Fasih Arabic, the Quranic Arabic, sometimes it becomes difficult to understand just one word, let alone a verse in its historical text. But then when we look at reality, like today, you mentioned to us before that when we are to do da'wah to Islam and represent Islam in the right way, sometimes within Muslims ourselves, between different sects, we don't have that understanding ourselves, even though Amir al-Mu'minin himself, alayhi salatu salam, showed us that and represented how we should act when we're in dialogue or when we're not really agreeing on a certain matter. But then some people tend to say that as Imam Ali alayhi salam is regarded as the fourth Khalifa in the Sunni sect and is regarded to us as the first Imam, that means we should just put that to a side and just continue living peacefully. So some people are saying that the wilayah isn't as important anymore and they're degrading it slightly. How do you feel about this? And should we actually put the wilayah slightly to a side?
I think it's a very important question, a very important point. When we have dialogue with the Christians, for example, we always say that despite all of our differences and despite all the disagreements we have in theology and practice and so on and so forth, we have something very important in common, and that is that we both, Christians and Muslims, believe in Jesus Christ alayhi salam, and we believe in Mary alayhi salam. And other people do not. They do not believe in Jesus Christ alayhi salam, and they do not believe in Maryam alayhi salam. But we, Christians and Muslims, both believe in them. So therefore this is our point of unity. Whereas we disagree on many other things, we both believe in them. Similarly in Islam, it is imperative and more important for us to state this, that our point of unity is Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, because we both believe in him. We both believe in Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam. Just like in Christianity and Islam we have different understandings of Jesus Christ alayhi salam, also within Islam we have different understandings about Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam. But we both believe in him. This is important. So he is our point of unity, or should be our point of unity, that we both believe in him. And we can take his wisdom into our lives. So that is very important. However, that doesn't mean, for us to agree on a point of unity just as we agreed with people from different religions, doesn't mean, for example, that we have to leave the importance that we have in our own faith, in our own theology. As far as we're concerned, Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam's importance in the faith is unparalleled. Cannot compromise on that. But we definitely can use that to say that this is our point of unity. We may disagree on other things, but he, the Holy Prophet of Islam, and Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam are our point of unity. They are the points that we both believe in. We both believe in them. And therefore, we should be united through them. Perhaps we will continue to have different ideas and beliefs about them, and that's fine. But we have to we have to use this as a point of unity in order to have dialogue. And that's the important thing, that in this day and age, in this times, we have to have dialogue. We have to understand other people. And to understand the other person, to try and engage in a dialogue, is not to say that I'm giving up my beliefs. Nor is it saying that we want the other person to give up their beliefs. No, it's saying let's try to understand one another. And maybe if as a result of that understanding somebody wants to change their beliefs, then they're free to do so. But the purpose, again, and we come back to that, the purpose is not to try and change people's beliefs. The purpose is to try and increase our understanding about other people, about what they think. And sometimes we think of things, or sometimes other people think things about us which are not true. But because we don't engage in dialogue, we will never know.
Well, that is the problem that we face. Like, there are many videos and many different articles that are constantly spread on social media where you would find so-called scholars preaching to hundreds and thousands of people, saying that, you know, the Shia school of thought, they claim different things, to be honest. Like, if I'm going to go into it, it's going to become, you know, quite surprising. But they degrade the Shia school of thought a lot, and which I find really weird. They do it mainly to Imam Ali alayhi salam, even though within their own school of thought they believe him to be a Khalifa. When you're faced in that situation, and because when, like, for any human being, when Imam Ali alayhi salam is mentioned, we all have this passion where, because he was oppressed and because, you know, he didn't practice the imamat that he was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we become a bit more defensive, in the sense that we don't really give the person a chance to express, so we can then correct them in the correct manner. So how can we learn from Imam Ali alayhi salam to actually do that? Because that's something that we all have faced and may even face more in the future.
I think what is key to remember is that there are different we have to make distinctions between people. So there are people, unfortunately, a very small minority of people, who express implicitly or explicitly dislike and hate towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. And with those kinds of people, then there's no chance of having any kind of dialogue, because we don't agree on this very point of unity that we're trying to bring. However, when it comes to the vast majority of people, and this is very important, we're talking about the vast majority of people, this very small minority of people who express hate towards Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and by extension hate towards the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam as well. But the vast majority of people are not like that. They do not believe these things, they do not take those people who preach this kind of hate seriously. The vast majority of people are not like that. So in that sense, this is our opportunity to distinguish between the people who are preaching the hate and the people who don't know. Secondly, even with the people preaching the hate, we have to show the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen that even after his rights were taken away from him, even after he was oppressed, he still remained patient. He still showed the patience in the face of all that difficulty. And of course, our difficulty is nothing compared to the difficulty of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So Amir al-Mu'mineen demonstrated patience in that difficulty to show us that you too have to demonstrate patience at certain times. And this will be important because it will be to do with the preservation of the deen, preservation of the religion. It will be to do with how we have to respond and what we need to respond with. So it is important for us to look back at that example and to stress on the examples from Amir al-Mu'mineen's life to show us that, which will show us that he went through all these difficulties and yet he remained patient. He did not at any time display his own anger. His only time he displayed anger was for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever he did was for the sake of Allah. So this is the important thing, and we have to stress upon these examples, we have to stress on these ways that the Imam did, so that people understand. We all understand and we all take it in and we realize how much difficulty he went through and what kind of patience was demonstrated.
Final question. With Imam Ali alayhi salam, as he had many characteristics that we can all learn from, what is the key characteristics that you believe that we as Muslims should have, especially Muslims living in the West, should have and should practice?
So with regards to any imam, we have three particular characteristics which are the kamal, or the supreme perfection of that imam. The first one, of course, is knowledge. The second one is generosity, and the third one is, according to varying different narratives, some narratives would put the third one to be patience, to be sabr, and some put it as bravery. And maybe we could think that sabr and bravery come under the same category, because there are times where bravery is fighting in the battlefield, but there are times where bravery is being patient. So all of these three characters, or four if you like, characteristics are characteristics which are important in order for a person to go towards self-development and self-purification and self-perfection. But of course the most important one is knowledge. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen emphasized on it, and all the Imams afterwards, because in order to get these other characteristics, in order to get generosity, in order to be generous, in order to be brave, in order to be patient, one has to be knowledgeable. Because if a person is ignorant, then sometimes they will do something that they think is courageous but is foolish. Or they will do something which they think is generous but it will be wastefulness. Or they will do something which they think will be patience but it will be cowardice. Or they will do something which they think is generosity but it will end up being asraf and waste. So in order to achieve these, knowledge is the most important characteristic. And this is why all the Imam focused on it, all the Imam preached it, all the Imam lived it in their lives. And that if a person becomes knowledgeable, then that person will be able to be successful in all these other fields.
Thank you very much, Sayyidna, for joining us on the show. And thank you very much for watching Beneath the Surface. See you next time.